Hello, welcome back to the YouTube channel. I am Nick from Australia. Welcome to the St. George Illawarra Dragons Team of the Decade from 2010 to 2020. Yes, this is Nick from Australia. I did have a haircut and a shave, so I know I look a lot different to when I had the beard all grown out and the long hair. So, yes, I am Nick from Australia. This is just a bit of a different look, I guess you could say. A bit of a haircut and a shave, so... Anyway, hope you guys are all doing well on this Monday afternoon. It's a pretty miserable day where I am. It's wet and crap conditions. But anyway, let's get into this afternoon's video. It's going to be the St. George Illawarra Dragons Team of the Decade from 2010 to 2020. I really am enjoying doing these Team of the Decades. I've only got about 4 or 5 more to go after this one. So not many more teams to get through. But thanks to everyone who's taken time out of the day all night to watch this video as well. So let's get into it. So we'll go through the Dragons 1 to 17. I'll tell you the coach of the decade, and we'll go through the players. So fullback Darius Boyd, on the wings Brett Morris and Jason Nightingale, in the centres Josh Dugan and Matt Cooper, in the halves Gareth Widdop and Jamie Soward, the front row of James Graham and Paul Vaughan, the hooker is Cameron McGuinness, the back row of Tyson Frizzell and Ben Cray. The lock is Jack DeBellin, and on the interchange bench, it is Ben Hornby, Matt Pryor, Michael Wayman, and Lisa Armour. The St. George Illawarra Dragons coach of the decade is Wayne Bennett. Now, I've got Wayne Bennett as the coach of the decade because having a look at the last 10 years or so for the Dragons, they had Paul McGregor there from 2014, and before that, I can't actually remember who was coach, but Wayne Bennett left the Dragons at the end of 2011. He went on to Newcastle. I can't remember who took over the Dragons, but they weren't that great because they missed the finals those 2 years in 2012 and 2013. So, having a look at the coaches over the last decade for the Dragons, I think Wayne Bennett probably still has his nose in front for the coach of the decade. So, plus he won the grand final for him in 2010, and they got to the semi-finals in 2011. So, I think Wayne Bennett is the coach of the decade for the Dragons. Now, I've got Darius Boyd at fullback. I think that's a no-brainer. Some would argue Dugan. Some would argue Matt Duffy, but I can't go past Darius Boyd. I know he only played 2 years for him, or 3 years for him, but 2010, 2011, he played for him in the decade. So, you know, I think Darius Boyd at the Dragons was absolutely fantastic. He was one of the best fullbacks in the world when he was at the Dragons, and he played very well for the Dragons, the mighty Red V. So, I think Darius Boyd deserves to be the fullback of the decade for the Dragons here. The wingers, well, I think these two are an absolute no-brainer. Brett Morris and Jason Nightingale. I think these two are probably a couple of the first picks for the team of the decade for the Dragons. Brett Morris, I've said it before and I'll happily say it again. Brett Morris is the greatest winger that I've ever seen in my lifetime. I know that there was a lot of great wingers back in the day, but I wasn't around to see that era. So for me, Brett Morris is the best winger that I've ever seen, so he makes this team here with absolute no-brainer. And I reckon he played his best football at the Dragons too, so Brett Morris is on the wing. The other one is Jason Nightingale, a one-club player, a loyal player, a great New Zealand international winger. Jason Nightingale was a very underrated winger for the Dragons, and he had a great career, Jason Nightingale, and his run at the Dragons was fantastic, so he makes the other wing no-brainer. The centres, I've got Josh Dugan and Matt Cooper. Now, a lot of people would say Mark Asnier, but Mark Asnier retired at the end of 2011. And, you know, I feel like Josh Dugan probably played a little bit better than Mark Asnier. Dugan was at the Dragons for 5 years, and he was a very good player. I think Mark Asnier would be in the team of the decade for the Dragons from 2000 to 2010, but I've put Dugan in here. It might be a little bit controversial. You could argue Gasnier. I wouldn't argue if you had Gaz, but I feel like Josh Dugan, he was good at the Dragons. I know he had a few injuries, but he played fullback, centre, bit of 5'8" here and there, and I thought Dugan did a really good job at the Dragons, and a fit Josh Dugan at the Dragons was a good Josh Dugan, so I feel like Dugan deserves to be in the centres. The other centre is Matt Cooper. Now, Matt Cooper was a fantastic player, a consistent State of Origin player for New South Wales, and a very good centre for the Dragons. He's a Dragons legend, Matt Cooper, and, you know, I think he deserves to be in this team for sure. So, Matt Cooper makes the centres, and that pretty much makes up the back line. The halves, now they're 2 5'8", I know, Widdop and Soward. Now, look, I've got Gareth Widdop at 5'8" because when he was at the Dragons, he was one of the best players in the world. I know in 2017, when the Dragons had that awesome start to the year, in 2017 and 2018, Gareth Widdop was arguably the best player in the world. So I think Gareth Widdop, at the Dragons, he was fantastic. And, before he had those injuries late at the Dragons, so it was a shame for him to get injured late in his Dragons stint. But Gareth Widdop at the Dragons was fantastic. So he's in the halves along with Jamie Soward. Now, Jamie Soward was the 5'8" for the Dragons when they won the grand final in 2010. And he also had a fantastic 2011 and an alright 2012. So I think Jamie Soward definitely deserves to be in this team of the decade. And if Jamie Soward wasn't playing in the halves for the Dragons in 2010, they would not have won the grand final, in my opinion. So Jamie Soward's in the halves with Gareth Widdop. The front row of James Graham and Paul Vaughan. Now, Paul Vaughan, his run at the Dragons has been pretty good. He's had a couple of quiet years now, the last 18 months or so. He hasn't been the same player, but Paul Vaughan's run at the Dragons has been fantastic, and I think he deserves to make the team somewhere here. So I've got Paul Vaughan in the front row. He's been good for the Dragons, and the other front row is James Graham. Now, James Graham joined the Dragons in 2018, I think it was, and when he joined the club, he was a very hard and tough player, James Graham. Always did a great job for him, laid a good platform, and he was always a hard worker, James Graham. He was a very consistent forward, so James Graham makes the front row along with Paul Vaughan. The hooker is Cameron McInnes. Some would argue Nathan Fien and Dean Young, but Cameron McInnes, ever since he's gone to the Dragons, he's been an absolute warrior. He's been a great leader for the club, and he puts his body on the line even when the Dragons are getting beat by 40. He's always put his heart and soul in the jersey. So Cameron McInnes for mine. I think he deserves to be in this team somewhere. So I've got McInnes at hooker, and I think he edges out Nathan Fien and Dean Young for mine. So Cameron McInnes, what a player he was and what a player he still is for the Dragons. The back row of Tyson Frizell and Ben Creagh. Now, Tyson Frizell, he just left the Dragons and he's gone to the Newcastle Knights. So I think he'll do well at the Knights. But as for his run at the Dragons, Tyson Frizell, besides 2020, Tyson Frizell had a fantastic career at the Dragons. It was a pretty good leader for him in periods. A very tough player, a consistent New South Wales State of Origin player. And he always put his heart and soul in the jersey. I think a lot of Dragons fans will want to forget the Tyson Frizell of 2020, but before that, it was fantastic. So Frizell makes the back row, along with Ben Creagh. Now, Ben Creagh was a fantastic player. He was a consistent New South Wales forward. He had a couple of games at Origin. I remember the game where he ran away in State of Origin, ran away from a fight, which is another topic for another time. But Ben Creagh at the Dragons, man, a very loyal player, a one-club player, a consistent bloke, and he always did a job on the field for him. So Ben Creagh makes the back row for the Dragons. He was a really good player. The lock, Jack de Belin. I know he's had his off-field drama stuff, but before all that, Jack de Belin was playing for New South Wales. He was a very good lock. He always did a job for him. He was a good ball-playing lock. He would score a few tries here and there. He was a very good player, Jack de Belin. It's a shame about what's happened off the field with the whole court case drama and all that. So, I don't know if Jack de Belin will ever play for the Dragons again, but what I can tell you is he definitely deserves to be in the team of the decade. So I've got Jack de Belin at lock. And now onto the bench. I've got Ben Hornby as that jersey 14. Now, Ben Hornby, what a player, what a career he had. He was fullback for a very long time, and then he transitioned to a halfback, and he became an even better player, Ben Hornby. And he was good at game managing the side around, running the ball here and there. He was a very good player, Ben Hornby. He was a different player compared to the other halves these days, Ben Hornby. And I thought he did a really good job for the Dragons when he was there. And he's a one-club player, and he's a Dragons legend. So Ben Hornby makes this team without a doubt. The other two front rowers I got, Matt Pryor and Michael Weyman. Now, Matt Pryor, he was more of a back rower at the Dragons, and he was a very consistent player. He won a grand final for the Dragons in 2010 and for their rivals, Cronulla, in 2016. But Matt Pryor's run at the Dragons was very good, very consistent player. Never whinged about anything, just went out there and did a job and did what the coach asked him to do. So Matt Pryor makes the bench along with Michael Weyman. And Michael Weyman had a couple of games at State of Origin level for New South Wales. He was a part of that 2010 Dragons grand final winning side. And I've got to say, Michael Weyman, no matter what you say about Michael Weyman, he was a very solid player, you know, very tough, very good player, very solid. He was a very good prop front rower, Michael Weyman. He was an old-fashioned front rower, and he was always a good player for the Dragons, so he makes the bench. Along with the last player I got is Leeson Armel. Now, we played for the Dragons for a very long time. I think from 2012 to 2018, maybe. I think he left in the 2018. Leeson Armel was a very, very consistent player. He was the sort of bloke where if he was on the bench one week, or if he was starting, or if you told him to go out there and, yeah, I want you to run 100 metres a game, I want you to make 50 tackles, I want you to go out there and do a great job for us. And he wouldn't whinge about it. He would just go out there and do the job and never whinge about anything like Leeson Armel. And he was a very good play for the Red V, and I think his best football was definitely at the Dragons. So Leeson Armel was a very good player for the Dragons. But anyway, guys, that's my St. George Illawarra Dragons Team of the Decade from 2010 to 2020. Let me know your Dragons Team of the Decade in the comments section below. Anyway, guys, I'm getting out of here. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you guys go ahead and like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Also, my Melbourne Storm Team of the Decade video will be out tonight as well. And along with the corner post, they will also be out tonight. So 2 more videos to come tonight for you guys. So it's a triple Monday. It's a triple header. Anyway, guys, also, if you're not following me on Instagram, make sure you do. There is a link in the description below. Make sure you follow me on Instagram. And also, if you want to donate to the channel, feel free to do so. There is a link in the description below. But anyway, guys, thanks for watching. I'll see you guys tonight in the next one.